Hello, and welcome back to Easing the Badger, a Wheel of Time first time reader podcast. I'm Will,
I'm Alex.
I am Flint.
and today we are covering chapters 9, 10, and 11 of The Eye of the World. How's everyone doing?
I'm tired.
Yeah, big same.
I think we all
Yeah,
are.
it's been a day for not restful sleep.
It's been a day.
It's certainly been something.
When Sundays feel like Mondays, man.
A day and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So how about these chapters?
I'm so excited for you to cover Chapter 9. I love that chapter so much. It is one of my favorite chapters in the entire series.
It's great. It's also a lot.
It
is. My notes for this one chapter are as long as my notes for the 2 chapters I covered in episode 1.
Well, it's a good thing our chapters are so short and to the point.
Right?
I say we get started and we'll take us on an adventure.
Alright, so chapter 9 is called Tellings of the Wheel. And the icon is the dragon fang. So if you recall, Flint, we heard that term with it being scrawled on the door of the Wine Spring Inn, I believe. So that's what that looks like. Usually has to do with chapters talking about the shadow and stuff. We start with Rand having a stress dream. No surprise there. He's in a desolate landscape being chased by Trollocs he can't see, but he can hear. He's chased up a ridge which sharply falls away to an eerie canyon full of roiling mists and strange glowing red spots as though fires are concealed within. Thunder rumbled in the fog and lightning shot up into the sky. A vast mountain stuck out from the mists, a mountain taller than any he had ever seen, a mountain he himself had never seen. But he felt like he knew it. It left him feeling hopeless and sapped all of his strength. Invisible hands grabbed at him and pulled him toward the mountain. He locked up his body, refusing to do as bidden, but as he resisted, he felt his strength sapped from him, and he knew he would soon give in. But then he found within him a well of anger that he clung to in defiance. "Serve me," a voice whispered in the stillness of his mind. A familiar voice. If he listened hard enough, he was sure he would know it. "Serve me." He shook his head to try to get it out of his head. "Serve me." He shook his fist at the black mountain. "The light consume you, Shaitan!" The smell of death surrounded him, and there was suddenly a figure in a cloak the color of dried blood over him, with a horrendous face that he refused to lay eyes on. He flung himself away from the figure and fell into the sky. Abruptly, he found himself standing in a field surrounded by dead vegetation. In the far distance, he could see a lone mountain that seemed out of place, but it no longer filled him with dread. A river flowed from the direction of the mountain, and within that river was an island containing a massive city unlike anything this bumpkin boy had ever seen. There were tall towers with walkways between them in the city, and from either side of the island massive bridges spanned the river. He knew that he needed to get beyond those bridges to find sanctuary. Suddenly he felt a chill down his spine, and knew the man whose face he could not bring himself to remember was in pursuit, grabbing for him. He ran as fast as he could, but as he moved toward the island, it receded into the distance. It grew smaller and smaller until it was but a speck in the distance. He felt his pursuer's hand grip his collar, and knew that if it so much as touched him, he would go mad. Or worse. Much worse. And just as that realization hit him, he tripped and fell flat on his face, and realized he was now on paving stones. He looked around and found himself on the lead up to one of the bridges, and people passing him on the street all around were in colors so vibrant they looked like a field of wildflowers. They smiled at him and spoke to him, but he couldn't understand them. They waved him forward, into the city. As he walked the streets, he looked at the buildings, and it seemed like even the most meager structure was made out like a palace. The most intricate designs were carved into every building, and music filled the air from all directions, and the sweetest smells surrounded him. He walked along a road paved in gray stones, and at the end of the road lay a tower far taller than any other building in the city, a tower of pure white, and it was there that safety lay. But surely he didn't have to go immediately, right? Let's check out this city while we're here. He turned down a side street, but at the end of that road lay the tower as well. He turned down yet another road, and there too was the tower. He broke out into a run, and before he knew it, he was at the foot of the alabaster stone walls. He was afraid to look over his shoulder lest the white tower loomed there as well. The people around him still had friendly faces, but looked as though they had lost hope, like he had broken it. Still, they gestured him toward the tower, pleading with desperation in their eyes. He gave in and walked toward the tower, and with his first step the joy and hope re-entered the people's faces, and they moved with him toward the entrance to the tower. Small children scattered flower petals at his feet, and he looked back to see who those were for, but only saw yet more townspeople ushering him onward. The people began to sing songs of joy and salvation, though he still could not understand their actual words. He danced along with the crowd, and soon he realized that the tower rose from a massive palace of marble, carved rather than built. As he moved toward it and safety, a voice in his head told him this was his destiny. He no longer danced, but neither did he stop. He mounted the stairs with hesitation. This was where he belonged. Scrollwork covered the massive doors at the top of the stairs, carving so intricate and delicate that he could not imagine a knife blade fine enough to fit. The portals swung open, and he went in. They closed behind him with an echoing crash like thunder. "We have been waiting for you," the Murdral hissed. He bolted awake, gasping and shivering. As he looked around the room, he noticed that Tam was still sleeping, but someone had been in to tend to their things and give them blankets. Wiping cold sweat from his brow, he wondered if naming the Dark One in a dream could bring his attention like it could IRL. He checked the window and saw that it was evening now, with the moon already high in the sky. He had slept all day, which, yeah, he needed it. But apparently he slept with the sword jamming into his side, so between that and having not eaten in forever, he's like, well, no wonder I had shit dreams. He got up and found a tray of food, and it was clear that Mistress Elvire had been regularly swapping out the tray to make sure the food would still be hot when he finally got to it, because she's literally the best. He slurped up the beef broth and made a sandwich that he ate ravenously before going to check on his dad. Tam had been undressed and tucked into blankets, and when Rand went to touch his forehead to check on him, Tam opened his eyes. He's able to talk, although his voice is rather weak, but Rand could tell he was well on his way to recovery and that everything Moiraine had said was right. Tam seems to have thought the previous night's troubles had all been a bad dream until he notices Rand wearing the sword. Rand fills him in on everything that happened, though he left out a lot of the scarier parts, and he wasn't ready to bring up the things Tam had rambled about in his delirium. Tam is dubious about what Moiraine said about the boys being targeted by the Dark One, and asks Rand to tell him what her exact words were. Rand tries his best to recall exactly, but isn't sure if he got all the details. Tam says, "You see, lad, Aes Sedai can be tricksome. They won't lie outright, but the truth an Aes Sedai tells is not always the truth you think it is. You be careful around her." Rand's like, "Geez, Dad, I know, duh." Tam's like, "Anyway, I should be going with you because you don't know jack shit about the world." Rand's like, "Hold up, you think I should go? For real? I thought you would have a million reasons for me not to." And Tam's like, "Brother's Trollocs after you. You gotta get to Tarvalon. Be careful around the Aes Sedai, yes, but they're not gonna straight up murder you like Trollocs will. Probably. And watch out for warders, too. Lan is surely bonded to her, and if you tell him something, you may as well have told her." Rand only knew a little bit about the warder bond from the stories. Something to do with the One Power, but it seemed to him like warders got all the benefits. They could fight longer, heal faster, needed less sleep, and supposedly they could sense if Trollocs or other shadow spawn were nearby, which is probably how Lan and Moiraine were able to warn the village ahead of time. But he figured the Aes Sedai had to get something out of the deal. Rand assures him he'll be careful, and Tam is like, alright, so when do we head out? I'll probably be good in a day or two. And Rand is like, yeah, about that. Moiraine says you gotta stay in bed for a couple of weeks, and we gotta scoot pronto. And she told Mistress Alvier. Tam knew he couldn't get around that, although he gave a half-hearted protest that maybe he'll follow them soon. Just then, Lan comes in and says Rand needs to say his goodbyes because trouble is brewing. Rand quickly gets his stuff together and goes to undo the sword to give it back to Tam, but Tam's like, I think you need that a lot more than I do, kiddo. Rand hugs his dad and promises he'll come back, and Tam says he knows he will and wishes him farewell. Rand tries to linger, but Lan comes in and snatches him up and out, saying, don't you know the meaning of the word trouble? Let's go. He pulls him into the hallways where Matt is waiting with a quiver of arrows at his hip, and he says, this isn't much like the stories, is it, Rand? They head downstairs and peek outside through the cracked doorway. Outside, an angry mob of about 3 dozen has formed in front of the Wine Spring Inn, led by Hari and Darl Coplin, Billy Conger, and Sin Bowie, facing off against Moiraine. Rand is shocked to see Hari wave a fist as he yells, get out of Emond's field! And Darl and Billy start yelling about how she brought the monsters to town. They try to get Sin to join in their shouts, but he seems a little reluctant to speak up, even though he does agree with them. You're an Aes Sedai, he says, and Aes Sedai bring trouble. You'll only bring more if you stay, and we've had enough already. Hari then threatens to burn her out of the inn, at which point Master Alvier and Master Luhan show up. Bran's like, the fuck did you say about burning my inn? While wielding a maul. The Coplins are like, you see... And Bran continues, and did I hear you threatening harm to one of my guests? Hari starts, she's an Aes Sedai! But before he can continue, Master Luhan moves forward. He casually stretches, but his big burly muscles are quite visible, and that quickly gets them to shut up. No, don't let me interrupt you, he says. You were saying? Bran starts calling the villagers out by name and pointing out how Moiraine had helped each of them, and saying to Sin he was especially disappointed in a village council member being part of this mob. Sin is cowed, but says, yeah, sure, she helped me, but she's an Aes Sedai. If she didn't bring those monsters, then where did they come from? This gets the crowd fired up again, but before Bran can say anything else, Moiraine starts whirling her staff above her head, bright white flames jutting out of each end before bringing it down in front of her like a bad bitch. And here I'm going to read a lot directly from the book. Is this what Emond's blood has come to? The Aes Sedai voice was not loud, but it overwhelmed every other sound. Little people squabbling for the right to hide like rabbits. You have forgotten who you were, forgotten what you were, but I had hoped some small part was left. Some memory in blood and bone, some shred to steel you for the long night coming. No one spoke. The 2 Coplins looked as if they never wanted to open their mouths again. Bran said, forgotten who we were. We are who we always have been. Honest farmers and shepherds and craftsmen. 2 rivers folk. To the south, Moiraine said, lies the river you call the White River. But far to the east of here, men call it still by its rightful name, Manethrendrael. In the old tongue, waters of the mountain home. Sparkling waters that once coursed through a land of bravery and beauty. 2,000 years ago, Manethrendrael flowed by the walls of a mountain city so lovely to behold that Ogier stonemasons came to stare in wonder. Farms and villages covered this region, and that you call the Forest of Shadows as well, and beyond. But all of those folk thought of themselves as the people of the mountain home, the people of Manetheren. Their king was Emond Alcar Althorin, Emond, son of Car, son of Thorin, and Eldrine Elan Carlin was his queen. Emond, a man so fearless that the greatest compliment for courage any could give, even among his enemies, was to say a man had Emond's heart. Eldrine so beautiful that it was said the flowers bloomed to make her smile. Bravery and beauty and wisdom and a love that death could not sunder. Weep, if you have a heart, for the loss of them, for the loss of even their memory. Weep for the loss of their blood. She fell silent then, but no one spoke. Rand was as bound as the others in the spell she had created. When she spoke again, he drank it in, and so did the rest. For nearly 2 centuries the Trolloc Wars had ravaged the length and breadth of the world, and wherever battles raged, the Red Eagle banner of Manetheren was in the forefront. The men of Manetheren were a thorn to the Dark One's foot and a bramble to his hand. Sing of Manetheren, that would never bend a knee to the shadow. Sing of Manetheren, the sword that could not be broken. They were far away, the men of Manetheren, on the field of Bekhar, called the Field of Blood, when news came that a Trolloc army was moving against their home. Too far to do else but wait to hear of their land's death, for the forces of the Dark One meant to make an end of them. Kill the mighty oak by hacking away its roots. Too far to do else but mourn. But they were the men of the mountain home. Without hesitation, without thought for the distance they must travel, they marched from the very field of victory, still covered in dust and sweat and blood. Day and night they marched, for they had seen the horror a Trolloc army left behind, and no man of them could sleep while such a danger threatened Manetheren. They moved as if their feet had wings, marching further and faster than friends hoped or enemies feared they could. At any other day, that march alone would have inspired songs. When the Dark One's armies swooped down upon the lands of Manetheren, the men of the mountain home stood before it, with their backs to the Tarandrel. Some villagers raised a small cheer then, but Moiraine kept on as if she had not heard. The host that faced the men of Manetheren was enough to daunt the bravest heart. Ravens blackened the sky. Trollocs blackened the land. Trollocs and their human allies. Trollocs and dark friends in tens of thousands. And dreadlords to command. At night their cook fires outnumbered the stars, and dawn revealed the banner of Baalzamon at their head. Baalzamon, Heart of the Dark, an ancient name for the father of lies. The Dark One could not have been free of his prison at Sheol Ghul, for if he had been, not all the forces of humankind together could have stood against him. But there was power there. Dreadlords, and some evil that made that light-destroying banner seem no more than right, and sent a chill into the souls of the men who faced it. Yet they knew what they must do. Their homeland lay just across the river. They must keep that host, and the power with it, from the mountain home. Emond had sent out messengers. Aid was promised if they could hold for but 3 days at the Tarandrel. Hold for 3 days against odds that should overwhelm them in the first hour. Yet somehow, through bloody assault and desperate defense, they held through an hour, and the second hour, and the third. For 3 days they fought, and though the land became a butcher's yard, no crossing of the Tarandrel did they yield. By the third night, no help had come, and no messengers, and they fought on alone. For 6 days. For 9. And on the 10th day, Emond knew the bitter taste of betrayal. No help was coming, and they could hold the river crossings no more. "What did they do?" Hari demanded. Torch fires flickered in the night breeze, but no one made a move to draw a cloak tighter. Emond crossed the Tarandrel, Moiraine told them, destroying the bridges behind him, and he sent word throughout his land for the people to flee, for he knew the powers with the Trolloc horde would find a way to bring it across the river. Even as the word went out, the Trolloc crossing began, and the soldiers of Manetheren took up the fight again to buy with their lives what hours they could for their people to escape. From the city of Manetheren, Eldrine organized the flight of her people into the deepest forests and the fastness of the mountains. But some did not flee. First in a trickle, then a river, then a flood, men went not to safety, but to join the army fighting for their land. Shepherds with bows, and farmers with pitchforks, and woodsmen with axes. Women went, too, shouldering what weapons they could find and marching side by side with their men. No one made that journey who did not know they would never return. But it was their land. It had been their fathers', and it would be their children's, and they went to pay the price of it. Not a step of ground was given up until it was soaked in blood, but at the last, the army of Manetheren was driven back to here, to this place you now call Emond's Field, and here the Trolloc hordes surrounded them. Her voice held the sound of cold tears. Trolloc dead and the corpses of human renegades piled up in mounds, but always more scrambled over those charnel heaps in waves of death that had no end. There could be but one finish. No man or woman who had stood beneath the banner of the Red Eagle at that day's dawning still lived when night fell. The sword that could not be broken was shattered. In the mountains of mist, alone in the emptied city of Manetheren, Eldrine felt Emond die, and her heart died with him. And where her heart had been was left only a thirst for vengeance. Vengeance for her love. Vengeance for her people and her land. Driven by grief, she reached out to the true source, and hurled the one power at the Trolloc army. And there the Dreadlords died wherever they stood, whether in their secret councils or exhorting their soldiers. In the passing of a breath, the Dreadlords and the generals of the Dark One's host burst into flame. Fire consumed their bodies, and terror consumed their just victorious army. Now they ran like beasts before a wildfire in the forest, with no thought for anything but escape. North and south they fled. Thousands drowned attempting to cross the Tarandrel without the aid of the Dreadlords, and at the Manetheren Drell they tore down the bridges in their fright at what might be following them. Where they found people, they slew and burned, but to flee was the need that gripped them. Until at last, no one of them remained in the lands of Manetheren. They were dispersed like dust before the whirlwind. The final vengeance came more slowly, but it came, when they were hunted down by other peoples, by other armies in other lands. None was left alive of those who did murder at Emond's Field. But the price was high for Manetheren. Eldrine had drawn to herself more of the one power than any human could ever hope to wield unaided. As the enemy generals died, so did she, and the fires that consumed her consumed the empty city of Manetheren, even the stones of it, down to the living rock of the mountains. Yet the people had been saved. Nothing was left of their farms, their villages, or their great city. Some would say there was nothing left for them, nothing but to flee to other lands where they could begin anew. They did not say so. They had paid such a price in blood and hoped for their land as had never been paid before. And now they were bound to that soil by ties stronger than steel. Other wars would rack them in years to come, until at last their corner of the world was forgotten, and at last they had forgotten wars and the ways of war. Never again did Manetheren rise. Its soaring spires and splashing fountains became as a dream that slowly faded from the minds of its people. But they and their children, and their children's children, held the land that was theirs. They held it when the long centuries had washed the why of it from their memories. They held it until today there is you. Weep for Manetheren. Weep for what is lost forever. The fires on Moiraine's staff winked out, and she lowered it to her side as if it weighed 100 pounds. For a long moment the moan of the wind was the only sound. Then Pate Alcar shouldered past the Coplans. "I don't know about your story," the long-jawed farmer said. "I'm no thorn to the Dark One's foot, nor ever likely to be neither. But my will is walking because of you, and for that I'm ashamed to be here. I don't know if you can forgive me, but whether you will or no, I'll be going. And for me, you can stay in Emond's Field as long as you like." He and the rest of the villagers peeled away in contrition, leaving the Coplans and Congers alone in their shame for a moment before they scurried off as well. At this point, Lan said, "All right, let's bounce." Rand had been transfixed during the story, but now he found a different reason to hesitate. Now it was time to really go, to really begin their adventure, and he wasn't sure he was ready. He vowed he would come home, though, no matter how long his journey was, and he and Matt followed Lan out of the inn. That's the end of chapter 9.
It's like listening to a gospel.
Moiraine, they could never make me hate you, girl. They could never make me hate you, girl. You tell them. You let them know. Shame, shame, shame.
No one wants to see the Congers marched up the street naked with shame being yelled at them. I'm just saying.
Oh, oof.
Nobody wants
Please,
that.
no.
So yeah, that was a fun little story. A little bedtime story.
Yeah, definitely not one to give you more nightmares.
Some good history going on there. I love that story of Manetheren so much, and that's why this is one of my favorite chapters in the entire series.
Get it. It's a banger.
It is. Classic Moiraine.
I will say, we didn't... In the TV show, we didn't quite get the telling of the story the way it's done in the books. There's a scene where they kind of sing a song about it, which I really do enjoy the song. And then Moiraine is like, "Do y'all even know what this song you're singing is?" And then she gives a bit of a truncated version of the story just to the kids while they're traveling. But Rosamund Pike did record a version of the audiobooks. Rosamund Pike is who plays Moiraine in the show. And so getting to hear her
Recite
read
it?
that in the audiobooks is so good as well.
I might have to listen to the audiobook just for that.
Yeah, it's... I mean, her versions are really good. Like,
I love,
you know,
I love listening to her narrate. I have her Pride and Prejudice. It is my comfort.
I still need to listen to that one.
It is literally my comfort book. Like, if I ever just need background sound or I am in the mood for nothing else, I just put that on. I love her voice. She does voices for all the characters.
I've only done Pride and Prejudice with Kate Redding doing it, who
I need to listen to
is
that
one of the normal, like the original audiobook narrators for Wheel of Time.
So we need to trade Pride and Prejudices here, is what we need to do.
Right.
I was actually really, really mad at Audible because for years that book was free and I had to buy it at the end of last year. It stopped being free on Audible. I was so much like I do the thing where I get a free credit every month, so all of my books are basically $14, no matter how much the book actually costs. That is how I am getting through Discworld, by the way. And yeah, so I was very angry. Like I went to play Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, why is this not in my library? It was no longer free. I was like, it's been actual years. You rat bastards. Anyway, I really, really think that the reason why this chapter was done the way it was is to emphasize the fear at the beginning of Rand and his dream with the hope at the end of the Minotharan story. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's meant to show... God, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. But I think there's a point that's that is being made there for sure.
Like contrast?
Yeah, almost dichotomy, is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Anyway, Flint, what did you think of this?
I thought it was great. I thought I really enjoyed both Rand's dream. I enjoyed how disjointed it felt, because that is, dreams make sense while you're in them.
It is.
And then you think about it once you wake up and you're like, none of this makes any logical sense. If you
Why was I walking around without shoes?
Right. If you even remember what you were doing. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm interested, this, I don't know if it's because the way that the dream is described and the things that happen in it, um, it doesn't, I'm not sure if this is like subconscious or like memories, you know? I mean, I assume that he would
Right.
know the name of the Dark One, maybe. It's, one of those things like the boogeyman, you know it, but you're not ever supposed to say it. But
yeah, that's one thing that I'm always confused about with this series. Like, you're not supposed to name the Dark One.
But they sure as hell do.
So if no one ever says it, how do they know it for anyone to say it? Because Matt had a story of someone naming the Dark One in town, and then bad shit happened to their farm. So if no one ever says it, how do they learn
the
what
Dark
it
One,
is?
I guess, has multiple names as well. So is it that you can't say any of them, or is it that you can't say
It's the
name is
true
the one you
name.
can't say?
You can't say specifically Shaitan is what you can't say.
Stop! You're gonna draw his attention.
Yeah, Shaitan is the Voldemort of this series.
The Hermer of this series, yeah. I feel like it's one of those things where like they teach like when you're teaching kids the word fuck, right? They learn the word from somewhere else, and you're like, no, you're not supposed to say that word, it's not acceptable. Right? So shaitan is an adult word. But even adults aren't allowed to say it. It's a naughty word. So like I feel like it's like that type of teaching where like it's just always been in the vernacular, and when it finally comes up, the children finally learn, don't fucking say it.
Right. I did when he finally ends up in the city. There's a passage that it says the sense of sweet perfumes and sharp spices, of wondrous foods and myriad flowers, all floated in the air, as if every good smell in the world were gathered there, and all that I put was me when I walk into a Chinese restaurant.
I'm thinking like me when I walk into Bath and Body Works.
See, me when I walk into a bakery.
Yeah, love that. And then it's so, because it's a right.
You're not wrong.
And it's all
You're
built as like the tower is safe, and it's also interesting. It's kind of like almost like a Dark Tower type thing, like a Stephen King thing. All roads lead to the tower.
Yes.
That was interesting. Yep. And then for it to be like you have to go there, safety is there, everybody's so happy for you to be on your way. They get really despairing when you're not, and then for him to get in there, and then the Murdral is there. Jump scare. Girl, wake up. We gotta go.
And
go. But then it's because then it made me think back over the rest of it, and it's like, it's a dream, so it doesn't have to necessarily make sense. But if it were real, if it were like a memory of something that happened, mixed with his fears of the Trollocs and the Fade, are they happy for him to die, right? Or happy for him to go into the hands of the enemy? I don't know. is very interesting. It's a very interesting dream to have. But I liked it. I liked the description of that.
Yeah. Fair warning, there are a number of dream sequences in
Yay!
books. So we love dissecting dreams and what actually means something and what's just fluff.
Like, we don't have a hard enough time doing that with ourselves. Now we have to do it for a book. So, moving on from the dream and the sequence of events, Rand coming out of his sleep and seeing, town mom, Mistress Alvere, trying to do her best to make sure he eats a hot meal. And, Tam being awake and talking with Tam and telling him what's going on. One of the things, the way Will worded it, made me think in my head of, like, the Aes Sedai aren't gonna murk you, boy, or something like that. And it just made me giggle because that is something I could see Will's version of Tam saying.
Yeah, you gotta be careful because they're tricky, but like these dudes are gonna eat you.
Like, she's...
These guys might kill you, but these ones definitely will.
Yeah, the thing that they don't lie, but the truth that an Aes Sedai tells you is not always the truth you think it is. I was like, that sounds like they just tell you the truth and you decide that you don't want to hear it. That I don't know that I believe that. Because I felt clocked as somebody who's neurodivergent, and I say something and people hear something else. Like, well, that's not what I said. Right? I told you the truth flat out. I said what I meant, and I meant what I said, but you heard something else. So,
see, when I first read the book, I always took it as lies by omission. They are telling you the truth, they're just not telling you everything. And they might not be telling it to you in what would otherwise be considered the correct order, but it's still not technically a lie. You know what I'm saying? That's how I always thought of it.
I think of it as like fairy rules.
Yeah.
Because the Fae can't lie, but they're very tricky.
Right.
Possibly. I thought it was very funny that
Did you have any, like, feel some kind of way when Tam, like, didn't hesitate, like, at all about sending Rand? Like, being like, yeah, you gotta go, bye.
I thought it was really funny. Rand was like, hey, what do you mean? You want me to go? You don't want me to stay here? It's dangerous out there, right? And yes. Go. Bye.
It's dangerous to go alone.
Bye-bye. He literally kind of does that with his sword.
There you go. Have at it, dude. Have at it.
I was thinking.
And it says Rand realized that he'd been waiting for hoping he would have reasons not to go. Like, sorry, I can't go on adventure. My dad said no. But like, it doesn't.
He didn't sign my permission slip.
I can't go to sleepaway adventure. My dad said no.
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And Tim, but it is very funny. He's anything possible to refuse the call, and it's not working. But
with that exact same line, that exact thought there, Flint, he had an opportunity to try when Tam wanted to go with. And he's like, no, you have to stay in bed for a while. He's like, well, I could stay here with you until you're ready to go, but he didn't go that route, right? Yeah. So...
Because I think... Because it feels like even though he wants reasons to stay, he knows he has to. Because the reasons to go are much stronger. Because at the end of the day, if he stays,
for sure,
the Trollocs will come back. And he doesn't want.
Yep.
And it's not just him that will be in danger, it's the whole village.
It's everybody. So it's one of those things that I've always liked in storytelling is like the whole risking one to save many sort of thing, right? The one for all for one. Back and forth of, is it worth it? And I feel like Rand is absolutely dealing with that in this moment and having to make that decision. Is my selfishness of not wanting to flee and leave my home and my fear of doing so worth putting everybody else here at risk of death.
Yep. So in this section, we also learn a little bit more about the warder bond.
Not too much, but something.
Mm-hmm. It is something to do with the one power, and warders are a little bit superhuman because of it.
And they do seem like bonded pairs, which is the impression that I got from the last readings.
Yeah.
You know, enough so that whatever you tell the warder, you may as well have told the Aes Sedai.
Right. Yep.
Interestingly, he doesn't say it works the other way as well.
What is in it for the Aes Sedai?
Who holds the power in this dynamic?
He says, what does the Aes Sedai get out of it?
Other than sword, I guess, which is good enough.
Right.
I think.
Right.
What reasons might an Aes Sedai need a sword when she can command the elements?
Well, because we know that it's, it seems like there's always an inherent danger to channeling the one power. So maybe it's a thing that they would rather not do unless they had to. That we just seeing a bunch of points where she has to, but it's not something that you just do willy-nilly.
Right, and it's already been made clear that people are weary of Aes Sedai. You know, she didn't roll in and announce who and what she was. She kept it under wraps for the most part. So, you know, traveling with a sword arm is good, not only good protection, but allows her to be more subtle about things.
It also lends to the cover, maybe, of her being like a noblewoman, if she is, right? But if she's not, then, she could masquerade as one because she's got a bodyguard.
I was gonna say that's exactly what I was gonna say, is whether she is a noblewoman or not, if she's got the gear, she can dress as one. And dressing as a noble is gonna get her into a lot of places that dressing as a peasant isn't gonna get her into. You know? Dress for the job you want. That's how that feels. It didn't surprise me. It did anger me. Both times I have now done the rating, that a mob showed up to chase them out. But I really, really did appreciate Bran coming out and being like, what, bitch?
Yeah, you had something to say?
Right.
I laughed again when, is it Hari? He says, get out or we'll burn you out. And then people drew back from him. Fried me.
Right?
Yeah, they're like, whoa. We don't co-sign
Who is
that.
we?
Who's
is that
this
the royal
we?
I'm not. I don't know what that is. And then Bran comes out and is like, say, what was that? You want to run that by me again? It's very funny. Very funny. They said,
what to my village? Or
they said,
to my inn?
Holds one.
Do you want to make sure I heard what I thought I heard? Or do you want to retract that
Let me move my bag so I can hear you properly.
And then Master Luhan just kind of stretching a little bit, just,
flexing those muscles,
breasting boobily, showing his pecs.
I've just made a decision right here in this moment that from now on I am picturing every single character in drag.
Yeah, okay. That works. I'm into it. I'm here for it.
Everyone's in drag.
Okay, works for me.
I like how she sucks the villagers into her story, and like to the point where like they start to cheer.
Yes, ma'am.
Like they don't even realize that they're invested.
They're being scolded. She's scolding them. She's roasting.
And here they are thinking they're listening to a Gleeman.
She's roasting them alive.
The way she gets their attention, though, like
I know.
whipping her staff about and shooting flames out of it, like, look here, all
like
eyes on
bitch.
Me, hello.
As she should. As she should.
Listen up, motherfuckers, I got a story for you.
We have to stand. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She's like, I thought that y'all came from like heroes, but you're acting like assholes.
rabbits.
And cowards.
Like
What's
rabbits.
going on?
Okay. This is what's left of Manethrin?
Alright, bet.
Emond would be rolling in his grave.
Probably was. I just the writing for Moiraine's story as she tells it held me in such captivity the first time I read it. And I did read it because I hadn't started the audiobooks at that point. That I was at work at the time and forgot what I was doing. I fully, like, my rats were on treadmills. They stopped running because I was so invested in the story. I think it's probably one of the few true parts of the entire series that I'm like, I need full historical spin-off. Like as I've said many times, I always want to know more about different things, but this is something that, like, I want a full series on this.
Yeah, so, that could make a really cool, like, spin-off series.
If anyone has read any really good fanfic that tells this story or leads up to this story, please send it my way. Which is saying a lot because I do not do fanfics. I never did. But I would read a good written one for this. I would.
Like a House of the Dragon style prequel.
Star Wars
right.
Universe
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for real.
What's up?
Well, I was gonna say, the story inspires so many different feelings of, like, that fantasy and adventure, and we're already in a fantasy adventure, so I feel like we're going down, what's it called? Not the rabbit hole, but, yeah, never mind, I can't think of it. Yeah. Forget it. I was gonna say that Leo DiCaprio movie.
Oh, like Inception.
Sleep Within Sleep. Inception, yes. We're getting into a fantasy Inception here.
It's a different mode of writing. It's, there's like a narration, and then there's like a chronicle, right? This is the chronicling mode, and I really appreciate how sort of seamless the transition between the two is. Again, for not having read any of this writing before, I'm really blown away by how well it all kind of flows together, and how these different, like, scales of the story, how it zooms in and out. It's very masterfully done. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, one thing I really enjoy that Robert Jordan does is when he goes into an oral storytelling mode, when he has a character telling a story, the story is told in a very different way from his usual prose, and it feels so it feels like you're listening to someone tell a story rather than reading a story out of a book. It's really well defined. My first time through this series, I had a pretty slow start. Like, it had been years since the last time I had, like, dove into fantasy, like, after high school, got out of practice of reading, and I'm in my mid-20s by this point trying to pick this up again. And so it took me a minute. It took probably a couple of months for me to get through those first few chapters. And then, like, Winter Night got my attention, finally. But then this was the point where I'm like, oh, I'm in.
It's hard not to get invested.
They sucked you in, and they
it's hard not to get invested. It's a really big story. There's a lot to tell here.
Yep, there is. And then it does feel anticlimactic, where, like, she finishes this great story, and then Lan's like, okay, let's go.
Like, that's it. All right, we're done. Anyway, back actually matters. Back to what
Moving
we were
on.
actually doing.
Right.
So yeah, we learn about the Trolloc Wars being a point in history. This is a point a few thousand years ago, but after the breaking.
The breaking came after Luz, right?
Yeah, basically, Luz exploding into Dragonmount was the kickoff of the breaking.
That's what I thought.
And then you have all the years of men going mad and destroying the world with the one power until they rein that in.
Right.
And then I think it was like 1,000 years later was the Trolloc Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're now an additional 2,000 years after the Trolloc Wars.
Right.
So this story would be like Jesus times to us.
Right. But Luz is still considered, like, Luz's era is still considered part of the Third Age, the age that we're currently in, right?
I mean, he's like the transition period.
Okay.
The breaking was the end of the Second Age, beginning of the Third Age.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's right there on the border.
It's
like a cusp,
and there's no, like,
sign.
hard set line, I don't
of
think,
course,
for
of
the
course.
end of an age. It's kind of ephemeral.
Like,
but
yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
So there's a period of So we've got this period of centuries of the Trolloc Wars. It said the Trolloc Wars lasted a couple hundred years in this tale before the whole Manetheren thing ended. So that's a long time for humanity to be being assaulted by these monsters nonstop.
Makes you wonder what it would be like for the people themselves, like how that changed.
Right.
And it's especially because within that whole time, there could have been any number of stories like Rand, you know? It just happens to be this is the one that we're looking at, and it's happening now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, chapter 10 is called Leave Taking. And I'm sorry, give me a minute. I don't have my thing up, so I don't have my chapter image description. Give me a second. Chapter 10. Okay, so chapter 10 is called Leave Taking, and the little symbol above it is, once again, Moiraine's staff. I think this is the second time we've seen it. Or is this the first time?
Second time.
So that's what I thought. Okay, so, after Moiraine's retelling of that amazing epoch, Lan, Matt, and Rand slip off to the stables, where they find Perrin waiting. Lan had previously charged Perrin with checking over the stable to make sure that they would be alone. Perrin says he did it. Lan begins to prepare horses, and Matt starts giving Rand shit for the sword that he's carrying, saying Rand's too good for a bow, basically. Perrin is then revealed to have an axe, which is a beautifully crafted weapon made by Master Luhan for someone who wouldn't pay the agreed upon price, and Luhan, knowing his worth, wouldn't sell it for less, so he kept it. Later on, he found Perrin fucking around with it and trying to use it, and so he just let him have it. The boys start discussing leaving, and Rand reveals that he told Tam that he was leaving and why, and Tam agrees that it was for the best. And the others express surprise that they were told. The others express surprise because they were told by Moiraine to tell no one and, like, just leave a note or something. And here she walks in behind them, clearly displeased with this revelation of Rand's, but is resigned to it already having been woven into the wheel's weave. So, they're just getting ready to head out. She's like, we need to go. And Egwene turns up and says they aren't leaving without her. Lan, clearly annoyed by this, Moiraine questions her as to how she knew. Egwene explains that Matt was running around singing, "Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious," which made her suspicious. The boys tried to dissuade her from going, explaining that the Trollocs are after them, and she scoffs in disbelief and tells them to at least be honest about why they're leaving. Like, she doesn't entirely believe it, despite the fact that she saw the Trollocs for herself. Moiraine says she can go. He's like, okay, settled, let's go now. Clearly annoyed, Lan says she can ride Tom's horse and that he'll leave money behind for Tom as payment. Just then, Tom hops out of the loft like, yeah, that's a hard no since I'm coming with you too. Lan then glares at Perrin, who sheepishly admits that he forgot to check the loft. So after a little more back and forth, Lan is like, okay, well, what fucking horse is the girl gonna ride? And just like that, Bella saves the day. Rand says Egwene can ride Bella, and Moiraine is like, yes, fine, good, let's fucking go. Asses in seats. So Rand quickly saddles Bella, helps Egwene mount, and he mounts the last horse, and they ride out. They literally haven't even gotten out of the stable yard yet before Lan stops them in the shadows, because they watch a group of townsmen who have armed themselves with super old armor and shitty-looking spears and stuff, and other weapon-like implements. That's how I pictured it. I pictured some with, like, pitchforks or whatever, approaching the inn. They're a ragtag patrol group, basically. And they kind of look into the window of the inn, decide all is well, and move on. Len makes a comment that 2 Trollocs would have them all for breakfast. He then turns the group around and leaves the stable yard from the back, having them all cross the wine spring water instead of going the traditional way and then just basically like cutting through the backside of town. They make their way slowly to the edge of town, having to stop here and there to wait for another patrol to pass by. And they reach the edge of town. Rand sees a very large, very dark shape fly across the moon. It was far too large to be a bat, and instinctively knows something is wrong. Lan has to double back to see why Rand has stopped, and Rand tells him what he saw, hoping that Lan's like, you're just seeing stuff, your imagination's getting to you. Instead, Lan growls the word Drugcar. As if nothing at all has gone right tonight. Of course there's one of these two, why wouldn't there be? Moiraine states it couldn't be anything else, and that it is... Okay, Moiraine states that it couldn't be anything else at all, and that if the Myrdal had one, it'll know, like, as soon as possible where they are, so it's no longer a riding out, they are running out. Lan gives the command to keep up, follow his lead if they wish to stay alive, and takes off galloping, and the others follow. And that is the end of Chapter 10. So, for Chapter 10, this is really, for me at least, where Flint's call to adventure truly begins. This is the start of the real adventure here.
Yep, it's time.
Yep, we're rolling. Shit's getting real. I personally don't think there's a whole lot to say about this chapter. There's not a lot of new insight given. It's mostly discussions and bickering. A little bit about the plans for leaving, essentially, and who's going. That's all I can really think of for it, but what'd you think of it?
I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny that Lan is just like, okay, it's time to go. And then there's something else. He's like, okay, it's time to go. And then there's something else.
Lan is so harassed.
He's I understand him so deeply. I get it. He is
dude. Wrangling
logistics.
Children.
Yeah. He's trying to do logistics, and the logistics are not logisticking like they're supposed to.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you mean that the girl is coming? What the fuck do you mean that the Gleeman is also coming? God damn it.
I'm pretty sure this is one of the quotes from this chapter. I might be wrong on which chapter it is. It's like, is this in the wheel too, Moiraine?
Yeah.
Like yeah, she doesn't. It's so funny because she doesn't care as long as they go, and he's like, "We have to care because what's she gonna ride?"
Yeah, that was Because she had said that about Egwene joining, and then Tom
Right.
tags along, and he's like, "Is this meant to
Table
be too?"
Lane's just ready to table
laughed.
flip something.
Yeah, I laughed a lot, especially because it's like call to adventure, more like Egwene is calling adventure to her. He said, "No, I'm going." Also, very funny. Y'all are not subtle. They'd be like, "How did you know what was going on?" And she was like, "Because I have eyes."
Right. But it should be pointed out, I did skip over this, that Moiraine does ask her if anybody else noticed Matt acting the way Matt's acting, and Perrin's giant axe being poorly hidden. And she's like, no, they're too busy rebuilding. Like, they couldn't care less. I, on the other hand, have nothing else to do. So...
And I'm going.
Get me out of this podunk town.
And of course, Bella is also going.
Of course.
That's right. Of course she's
The
going.
queen has to go. Something else I skipped over in the general description of this chapter, but will probably come up, I don't know how you did your chapter, but will probably come up with yours, is the horse that Rand is riding is a large gray stallion called Cloud. He is the fastest in Emond's Field, and I think it specifies the two rivers completely. And Cloud was deliberately left for Rand because Rand was busy helping Egwene get onto Bella. His friends mounted much more docile horses. We're basically like, haha, fuck you. My dog just hit his head on the drawer of the dresser. I don't know if you heard the thunk, but... Walnut, get up here. Lay down. Okay, you can lay there. That's fine. He's chasing shadows. I might have to kick him out. But yeah, so Cloud will come up, obviously, throughout the rest of the book, but, so I figured naming him now, which is the chapter he's named in, so any listeners aren't bamboozled.
Another thing that I laughed at when Moiraine says that there's a Drakkar following them and Tom groans. Like, okay, babe, no one told you to come. You volunteered. You volunteered yourself and then insisted.
I know.
Okay, that's all you, babe.
I feel
that's
like
all you.
Tom's groan, for me, was the much more comedic representation of Lan's frustration of everything going wrong.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's heard the stories, it's Tom. So he's like, fuck.
Yep. That groan was, what did I get myself into?
Something you didn't have to, my boy. Nobody told you to come. In fact, if you'll recall, Lan did not want you to. So.
But at the same time, he would have been stuck traveling by himself otherwise, so...
Right.
Better to be following an Aes Sedai and a warder when faced with a Dreadgar.
Than a lone man on the road.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's really all I have for Chapter 10.
We have our party assembled. We have gathered our party and are venturing forth.
Right, so.
Moiraine, Lan, Tom, Egwene. That's our seven. So that's our fellowship. That's our 7.
Yes.
8 if
Right,
you
so.
include Bella.
Of course. Obviously. Duh.
We have Perrin's axe and Matt's bow.
Naturally. I can't believe that the concept of a fellowship of 7 was invented here. That's crazy.
It's never been done before.
Ever.
Never once. Never once.
I mean, hey, we even have the wise magic user.
Yeah, no, what? Moiraine is straight up Lady Gandalf.
Oh, for real. Except Tom's the one that's smoking the pipe.
She's Gandalf Big Naturals.
If you even care. Gandalf Big Girl.
Alright, so then we've got chapter 11.
So chapter 11, The Road to Terran Ferry, is headed with a picture of the tree once again. It's presumably, I guess, like chapters mostly for traveling, mostly dedicated to the actual act of
Yeah, I
traveling.
think it specifically said for traveling in the woods at night.
Okay. Yeah, so chapter 11 begins with the traveling party hurrying along the north road away from the drog car, afraid of it tracking them for the Murdral. Lan in front and Rand as the caboose. Every few minutes, Rand checks for this creature that Tom said was worse than a Trolloc or a Fade, but all he sees are shadows. Rand's horse, Cloud, goes as quickly and as energetically as Rand suspected he would, but he does also keep an eye on our queen, Bella, and Egwene. Bella keeps up, running with the rest of them, and they continue past farmhouse lights and the blurred bark of dogs who were almost too slow to be alerted to them before they were gone. Eventually, Lan stops the party, and Rand sees a field of lights ahead that seem like fireflies until he realizes that they're windows. The party has made it to Watch Hill, another village, as quickly as that road probably had ever been traveled, and they begin to dismount to give the horses a break. Tom and Rand begin to discuss how a few hours' rest might be nice, and Rand can smell food and hear songs coming from the village. Lucky Watch Hill, with no Trollocs to disturb their belt. Lucky fuckers indeed. Rand notices that of their party, everyone except Lan and Moiraine look quite tired. Matt and Perrin discuss staying at an inn called the White Boar, but Lan insists that they cannot stop until they cross the Terran River. Rand looks to Moiraine for backup, only to see that she is healing the horses' fatigue before moving on to the humans. Lan says that Rand should have known, watching her work on his father, that she could do such things, and tells Rand he'd better hope that Moiraine doesn't get too tired before they reach Tarvalon. Moiraine, for her part, says that our queen of the universe, Bella, has a good heart and is in fact keeping up so much that she seems less tired than the other horses because that's
Yay!
my girl. Because that's my
Snaps!
girl. That's our queen. Love her. Suddenly, a scream like a man dying under sharp knives sounds through the night. The Drakkar has found them, and apparently it's swooping season. Much of Rand's immediate attention goes to Cloud, who is quite understandably freaking the freak out, but is also dragging Rand by the hand. The swooping ends, and Rand checks on the rest of the party, who are dealing with their own horses. Everyone again, except for Moiraine, whose white mare steps delicately away from the others. And Lan, who is scanning the sky next to his own quiet horse. It's then that Rand notices that Watch Hill has gone momentarily quiet from the scream, with the sounds of Beltane starting in before long, because in case we forgot, I do believe it is in fact the night of Beltane.
Yes.
Rand knew he would listen for a while, it says, and perhaps watch for what had caused it, then return to their jollity. They would soon forget the incident, its memories submerged by song and food, and dance and fun. Perhaps when they heard the news of what had happened in Emond's Field, some would remember and wonder. So Watch Hill resumes its celebration, but stops again when the Drakkar screams once more, though this time it's further away, up in the sky. Lan says it's tracking them, and the party begins to mount once again. Egwene urges Rand to hurry, because instead of getting back in the saddle, he's standing there like an idiot. Babe, we have to go.
Like some slack jawed yokel.
Yeah. Once everyone saddles up again, they're off at a gallop, leaving Watch Hill behind. Whereas the trip to Watch Hill had been in an orderly line, even galloping, now everyone is huddled close together. After another overhead scream, Lan lets them run. That way. Rand is closer to the front now, but even with Cloud running like Rand didn't know he could, they still can't gain a single step on Lan and Moraine's horses. They must just make them different wherever those horses came from. Bella is still keeping up, though, and Rand suspects that Moiraine did more than just heal her fatigue. Egwene is living for the drama, it seems. She's thriving. Lan asks Moiraine something, presumably whether she can fight the Drakkar, but she says she cannot, especially not while on a galloping horse. Suddenly, they run through a small piece of fog, even though Rand thinks it's much too cold for that. Despite this, the fog appears again, until they run straight into a wall of it, to lose the Drakkar. This is Moraine's idea to lose their tracker, and it seems to work. Rand is afraid of the fog as evidence of Moraine's power. Knowing that Moiraine could do things, even seeing her do them, was one thing, he thinks. Having those things leave his skin damp was something else again. He realized he was holding his breath, too, and called himself 9 kinds of idiot. He is, but I think we love him anyway. He reminds himself that Moiraine healed Tam, and forces himself to keep breathing. So, they run at a gallop, Len and Moiraine in front, as if only they could see through the fog. The fog enshrouds them all, hiding them, and everything else. Rand sees his friends only as shadows, though he can't even tell in the fog what the shapes are for sure. And only the feeling of air on his face and the feel of Cloud running lets him know he's moving at all. After what seems like hours, Lan calls for them to slow down again, so abruptly that Rand actually moves ahead of the rest of the party for a second before he can get Cloud to stop. All around, houses on red stone foundations high up to protect the buildings from the floods every spring surround them. Welcome to Terran Ferry. They move through the town, and Rand tries to remember what he'd been told about the people of this place. Apparently, they seldom ventured into what they called the lower villages, Shady Boots, by the way. And when they did, they went with their noses turned up, as if smelling something bad. They also all have a reputation for slyness and trickery, to the point that people said if you shook hands with one to count your fingers afterward. Shady Boots. Party stops before one house, seemingly just like all the others, and Lan begins to pound on the door. He continues, despite a complaint from a neighboring house, until a man opens the door. This is Master Hightower, a ferry owner, who Lan asks for a ride on the ferry immediately. Right now. Hightower refuses until Lan counts out a whole bunch of gold coins, which, to be honest, is so zaddy of him. And offers the same amount again once they've crossed. Money talks. Hightower agrees and begins to get ready. He closes the door on them after Lan tells him they'll be waiting at the ferry, and the chapter ends.
Shady Boots.
That's what that chapter should have been called.
Shady Boots.
One of my favorite things about this chapter, I'm pretty sure it's Matt's line and not Perrin, but when they find out the guy's name is Hightower, Matt's like, Hightower? He's never
even seen a Hightower.
That's coming from a low village country boy who also has never seen a Hightower.
Right. Okay.
It's like, oh,
you trying to read?
You Terran ferrymen think you're so much better than us.
As the library is open, apparently. For everyone. But TLDR, they get on horse, they run, they get down, they get on horse, they run, they get down. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as my fellow Dragon Age fans will know, swooping is bad.
No fun.
Yeah, in my opinion, the Dread Car is probably one of the scariest shadow spawn. I hate that shit so much.
Yeah, big ass fucking thing with wings, and it literally swoops down out of the sky to get you.
Yeah.
Nope, just that's it.
Thanks.
We're done.
Thanks, but nah.
And you haven't even gotten a full description yet. Just wait. It gets worse.
Bad. Terrible. Immediately now.
I must have blacked it out because I do not remember what it actually looks like.
Get ready.
I was going to say, save yourself from the trauma just to have to re-traumatize yourself.
I think overall it's just a continuation of chapter 11. It's the beginning of their adventure. It is a beginning.
Yeah, we are in transit.
Mm-hmm. We have left home behind. We are being spurred on by fear and God knows what else flying in the sky. And
there were a couple of little passages that I really liked. The thing about having Moraine's power leave his skin damp being viscerally different.
Like a physical representation of the power that he can see.
The physical
and feel.
Evidence left behind.
Tangible.
Yeah.
That's what
it's much different than just watching her, than even watching her do it. Because when she was twirling the staff and the flames came out, he wasn't in that.
Right.
They didn't burn him or anything. It's just part of the theater of whatever she's doing.
And he saw.
But this is
he saw an effect of her power on his father, but this is his first interaction with it himself.
Right. This is tangible. He
right?
can
And breathing
feel
it.
it.
He's afraid to even do that.
Yeah.
As though the fog will kill him. As though if she did, as though if she wanted to hurt them, she wouldn't have just done so already.
She had plenty. Right. She's had plenty of opportunity to do so.
Then, as they're going through the fog, and he says, "It says shadows in the fog raced, but he could not even be certain of their number or that they really were his friends." It reminds me, I think that's why like heavy fog features so heavily is like in all of the most classic or iconic horror stories. It's like the classic trope that sets the scene for a scary story. Right? It's
Yes.
just water, right? But anything could be there. Anything could be in it. Anything could be out there, and you wouldn't even know until it was on you.
It's the same.
That's terrifying.
Oh my
It's
god.
the same idea as why we're afraid of the dark, is because we don't know what's out there. We don't know what's in the darkness. So it's the same. It's the same mechanism, just presented differently.
Mhm.
Last night here we had really dense fog, like to the point where there was like an advisory on my phone about it.
Ooh.
And when I was heading to work last night, I'm looking around. I'm like, oh shit, this is that fog Moiraine summoned.
Yeah, must have been because I got a fog warning too. So, I mean, I didn't go outside, but
It was
it's
like Silent Hill out there last night.
just the mystery.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Land just pulling money out of his bag to give to Master Hightower. What a flex! Huge
Hey,
flex
Land
on his
knows
part.
how.
Actually, I was like, oh,
Land knows what makes the world move.
Mm-hmm.
He
it's
knows,
very.
as you said, money talks.
And it goes to show what kind of resources they must have left the White Tower with.
Right.
Mhm.
And the fact that he's like, he is super casual about it in general, so it feels very much like a money talks, wealth whispers sort of situation, too. Like, you don't know just how much they have in resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a totally different scale of doing business.
Right.
Yeah, but it is interesting that they get into the town, and the first thing that it says is that Terran fairy folk had a reputation for slyness and trickery. It was it, I have, because of the types of things that I studied in school,
Yep.
in my history studies, I immediately was like, this smells like anti-Semitism. Like anti-Semitism turtles. The turtles are anti-Semitic all the way down. Like
I mean,
it was very striking to me immediately. And then to talk about, Hightower's pinched and long features, I was like, wait, hold on, hold on. And he's distrustful of everybody, but he really likes money. Hold on, wait, wait,
I
wait,
mean,
wait, hold on. Get back here.
yeah, it kind of smells like it.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're not wrong.
Just whenever something like that comes up, because of my experience with certain other literature series that I did not analyze
Yeah.
quite as critically until I was much, much older.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Part of that, and then on top of my history studies that I did, I'm much more sensitive to things like that, I think, than I was.
Right.
I was like, okay, was this? I mean, was this necessary? And they're all like snooty, and they think that they're better than everyone else. Okay, okay, okay.
This is what we're
Well,
doing now, apparently.
yeah, and it's not like literally during the Black Death, like the Black Plague, that they punished Jewish people because Jewish communities in Poland weren't as heavily affected because they were cleaner, right? So it's not like so they weren't dying in quite as, like, the numbers were proportionally different, noticeably so. But then you think like they think that they're better than us because they're cleaner and therefore they weren't dying. Like, hold on, wait. I think we're going a little fast here, but just part of the set piece of the story, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know how much closer we're going to look into that.
I don't know whether.
I don't know that it matters to the story.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's just something. It's just something that I noticed.
I feel like it's just kind of a dash of flavor to show the prejudices these podunk children have been raised with.
Mhm.
Like, I don't even know that Robert Jordan was necessarily saying that it's true. We're getting all of this information from Rand
Right.
and what he has been told.
Rand's experiences. And the thing is this could simply be just that, just flavor that these people in this slightly bigger town and slightly farther away town are, shysters and stuff, and because they look down on, the smaller villages, and they think they can cheat them, and, maybe that's the whole reason. Maybe there's definitely similarities, but, like, maybe the curtains are just blue. You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, it's just something that I noticed.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh.
There's definitely something there for sure that is noticeable by that, though.
Anything else specifically about this chapter?
I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
Alright, so what were some of our takeaways from these 3 chapters as a whole?
Moiraine is a bad bitch. Egwene won't take no for an answer. And Lan is a zaddy.
Sounds about right.
Yes. I agree. I concur. And Rand, oh my God, we have to go.
Can
Babe,
we
get
leave?
on the horse. Right. Babe, get back on the horse. Hey, come on.
It makes me think of that scene from Hocus Pocus where they use the headlights in the car to trick the witches into thinking it's dawn, and then, like, she's sitting there whistling at him like, go, get in the car.
Yeah, there's several points in this immediate flight from Emond's Field where Rand really is just embodying the concept of slack-jawed yokel.
He really is.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the thing is in that moment where he's just staring, even he realizes it.
Yeah.
Even he realizes he was being an idiot.
Wait, what am I doing?
Right. Oh, yeah. Also, the last takeaway, Bella has the best heart.
Of course. Yep. The takeaway, as always.
Directly from Moiraine herself. We heard it.
As always, is that Bella is a queen.
Hell yeah.
Obviously.
Run, Bella, run. And Bella ran.
And she did.
And Bella ran.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, she did. That's right.
You know what? I think if I were to get a Wheel of Time quote, that would be it. And Bella ran. Like, tattoo. Okay. I could see me doing that. And Bella ran. Just that.
If I was going to get Wheel of Time merch, it would be a Bella plush.
Yeah.
If they had it.
Yep.
I would get one.
I feel like at some point in the past 30-something years, someone has to have made one.
They must have. I might look.
I know there's...
Maybe I have missed it every time. What color is she?
She's a shaggy brown mare.
Shaggy brown. Okay, I picture her as a shaggy gray, but yeah, shaggy brown. I don't know. I feel like I missed it every single time I've read the beginning of the book, and I knew she was shaggy, but I just pictured her as like a medium to dark gray. Every time.
I think those 3 words are just always the description of her is shaggy brown mare. But no, there's like t-shirts and stuff that say like Bella is the creator, and then other camps that say Bella is the dark one.
How dare you?
Bella is the queen, as according to Flint. So this is what we're going with. Bella is.
I will hear nothing against her. Actually,
she is mother.
Not a single thing. To the gallows.
To the gallows.
To the gallows immediate. Treason.
Off with her head.
All right, and so where do we think we're heading after this?
Where are we going, Flint?
Well, for right now, apparently they are going across the river, and then on from there to, wherever and whatever their lives are becoming now. It's still more change, possibly more sense of isolation, more loneliness, more disorienting feelings. And it's just, the amount of new information that's coming is quite a lot. So it'll be interesting to keep up.
Yeah.
I think with that, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Easing the Badger.
As always, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Easing the Badger. If you want to keep reading along with us, please make sure you subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you find podcasts. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and a review where possible. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at EasingBadgerPod, and send us an email at easingthebadgerpod@gmail.com. Our link tree will be in the show notes. Theme music is Magic Tavern by Alexander Nakarada.